In 2016, well, certainly we've come out of this year with some dry areas and some very wet areas on the Canadian prairies. So our chief concern right now is what the winter conditions are going to be. I would say especially in those wetter areas, because in some of those regions we haven't been able to finish harvest off. And certainly we don't want to see excess of moisture during the winter. Fortunately, the forecast is calling for a drier winter, so that should work out fairly well if that forecast comes to occur. On the other hand, we do have some areas that are still dry from last year's drought, especially in parts of Alberta, southern Alberta, up into the northeastern growing areas. Those areas, certainly we're going to need to see some rains, especially in the spring, to help boost the subsoil moisture levels in those regions. Yeah, certainly in terms of the traditional markets for Canadian wheat, don't see any big changes in terms of the demand structure coming up. In a lot of cases, most of our countries that we sell to don't have domestic production, so that should help keep the demand fairly solid. Although our competitors are also very significant, so that in some of the Asia-Pacific markets, the competition is going to be quite significant this year. So obviously, prices are not going to be what we hoped they would be at the planting when we planted this crop. In terms of other crops like durum wheat, certainly we do see some issues developing in North Africa in terms of it getting enough moisture this season. They've had a few rains recently after planting the crop, and now it looks as if the weather forecast is for above normal precipitation during their chief growing period. At the conference, a number of meteorologists basically said that the Mediterranean basin was going to be fairly wet this growing season. That's not a good news for demand for next year's crop on the durum side. So again, we'll have to take a look as we go through the season there, but certainly durum prices might be under pressure because of that.